interesting developments that has scared the crap out of American generals.
Get ready. Tomorrow begins right now. Ooh, old intro.
Good morning. How's everything up in the sky?
Is everyone with me here? I've got a Spice Mike sitting right over here. I've got a Jared, a Ryan,
Spice Mike.
and a Splice Mike. Hey man,
Spice Mike.
I'm trying to turn and do my thing.
Thank you. I
Right?
appreciate
Is
you.
that Star Wars spice or Dune spice?
I was going to say, all the way from Arrakis this morning.
You know, I try.
Famous Fremen. Spice Mike.
For those of you watching on demand, you may have noticed some slight tweaks to the show. We're actually going back to some of the old stuff that worked fairly well in previous Space Vidcast and TMRO shows. So this is, I guess if you're watching on demand, this is the edited version of the show. And if you would like to watch it live, you have two options. Like, obviously, you can watch it live. You get the pre-show now, so that's open to everyone. You don't even need to be a member. You can watch the chaos. And group, was there chaos? There was chaos.
Yeah,
Yes.
there was chaos.
Oh, yes.
Always
There
is.
Glorious chaos.
Glorious chaos. And so if you'd like to see the glorious chaos, watch live. Your other option is we will not actually pull the live archive down until the actual on-demand archive is up, at which point the live archive, I think we're going to move to members only. I'm not sure what to do there. I don't think we should have both of them on the channel. I think the algorithm is going to punish us. So I'd love to know what you think we should do. First off, is this a good idea, going back to this format? And then secondly, if we do this, should we leave it in members only? Should we leave it unlisted, private? Like, what should we do there? Your comments below. Let us know what you're thinking. There are going to be a few other changes as well. So just, we're trying to take the best of what we did in the past over the last 17 years and bring it forward and, go from there. All right. On that note, let's go ahead and get started in our main topic, which is China is doing one of everything, it sounds like. Space Mike, I think this was a topic that you had brought up originally. Right now we're saying China and Mars, but that only scratches the surface.
That's right. Yeah, something that I do appreciate about China is that they periodically release their 5-year plans and even beyond that of what they plan to do in spaceflight. And when it comes to their science objectives, they just don't have plans that they want to do. I'm sure some of them will still probably evolve a little bit, but they plan on doing a Mars sample return, and they might beat NASA in doing a Mars sample return. They're hoping to have something launched have something launched that would be on its way back to Earth by the end of 2030 or the beginning of 2031. And depending on how NASA goes, China might beat NASA to be the first one to bring back a sample from Mars that isn't an asteroid that hit a long time ago. So that's just one. There is a whole bunch of other plans that they have. They want to go and send probes to Jupiter and look at some of the moons of Jupiter. They want to look at the moons of Saturn. They're actually planning on missions using nuclear RTGs to power the spacecraft to go to Uranus and Neptune. They want to look at Triton. They want to do some crazy stuff. And the Triton one is really fascinating to me because they plan on melting through the ice to take a sample of the, subsurface ocean that we think is there, or that we know is there. But it's just mind-boggling to me that they have these really ambitious plans. And again, it's all probably a little subject to change, but just the fact that they are planning for it and putting resources towards it right now is pretty mind-blowing.
Do you think they can? So many questions, Space Mike. Talking about doing this stuff and doing this stuff are very different things. I don't think we should minimize China. Like they have a human. They've sent humans into low Earth orbit on space stations. They have transit systems. Like they know how to do a lot of what the rest of the world knows how to do, right? So we can't just eliminate them and say, oh well, this is hard. You don't. But at the same time, like these are big ambitions. This is large. Do we think they're actually going to be able to execute this on this? You were saying 2030, right? That's like 5 years away. 2030, correct?
Hmm.
So that's like 5 years out. Th- Really?
I think so. I mean, just looking at their lunar programs and the Martian mission that they have succeeded, I mean, they're only the second nation ever after the United States to successfully land and deploy a rover on Mars. Like that alone is pretty mind-boggling. I don't think that they got enough attention when that happened. And all of their missions that they've been sending to Mars with their impressive landers and rovers with the Chang'e program has also been really impressive. And the way that they sent their lunar sample return, I almost said Mars sample return, the way that they were able to return samples from the surface of the moon and from the far side of the moon, that is really impressive. And yes, it's 5 years out, but I think that they could probably pull it off. The way that they have a synergy between all their different bureaus and scientific departments that they have, I think that they could probably pull it off if they really pushed all their energy into it.
As Melanie says, they might have some knowledge that we don't, right? I mean, obviously, they know where their space program is far better than we do. Do you think this is something? I'll open this up to the entire group. Is this something that they saw NASA's science budget getting slashed, and they're like, "Let's pounce and make some announcements now"? Do you think that this was in the works for a really long time? Like,
I hope
how do you
so.
think this came about?
Yeah, I hope so.
You hope
And if
that it
no,
was in the work for a long time, or do you think it was them just pouncing on an opportunity?
I think both. I think a little bit of both. I think that they've been working on it for a long time. Someone obviously had to be thinking about this for a long time to have, at least a baseline plan of here's where we want to go, here's what the spacecraft's going to look like, here's what we're going to do. I mean, they're even putting out proposals to the international community of, hey, do you want to fly some of your instruments on our probes? Like, come on in. We want to work together. So they've they have worked on it ahead of time, but I think that the timing of this announcement is also very uh, closely tied to that the rumors going around that NASA's going to slash its budget. I think it's them, saying like, "Oh, okay, good. Here's our plan then to take the lead." In case any of you were worried that no one on Earth is going to be doing these types of missions.
Do you think that could change America's plans? If we see China being like, all right, if you're not going to do it, we will. Do you think that the current administration, current Congress will allow the baton handoff? I mean, not to sound egotistical, but I feel like NASA and the United States are leaders in space right now. We are the ones to beat. So, are we willing to cede that leadership?
I certainly hope not. And I hope that the way that they interpret this and take this, I hope that it scares the heck out of them. And they're like,
Hmm.
no, we cannot allow China to overtake us on anything. And or at least when it comes to spaceflight. Um, and really kind of push and double down to try to do some sort of impressive programs in the future. I mean, NASA's still in flux as we're waiting for a new NASA administrator, but I think that the people in Congress who help decide the budgets are going to take this, at least I hope that they take this as a sort of existential threat and are willing to push forward on ambitious plans like this. If not, then that would be a real shame.
I
I
mean,
think that's
ultimately, it's
I think that's actually inconsistent with what they've been messaging about what they're trying to do.
What do you
And
mean by that, Dada?
uh, if you're taking money away from, and this is getting into politics, and I'm sorry, if you're taking money away from USAID and Social Security and all of these departments so that you can balance the budget, it makes zero sense to add money to NASA in order to be able to once again beat the communists at making something happen. And I just don't see that happening at the moment.
Do you think it would be adding money though, or just simply not slashing the science budget? Because those are two very different things. Right? Slashing the science budget is obviously going to have a detrimental impact on
They're gonna have a
science.
hard they're gonna have a hard, but they don't give a shit about science. They're gonna have a very, very hard time trying to justify not slashing anything at NASA.
Maybe, possibly.
When you're gutting Social Security, when you're gutting USAID, when you're gutting all of these other admin organizations within the government, why would you not also gut NASA? Why would you not also gut, the exploration that so many of them think is a waste and is not worth it, even though it is
But
a
even outside.
vital jobs program, just like all the rest of the government agencies that they're getting rid of.
Even outside, oh, well, that is an entirely larger. Just you saying
Mm-hmm.
that gave me chills of like, oh, I do not like that. Uh, that is not a conversation for here, though. But maybe in post show, repeat that sentence, and I think I'm gonna go on a rant. Okay,
Stay
not
tuned for the member
appropriate.
show, everybody.
Apparently.
I'd
But
like to get some of Jared's thoughts though about
yeah.
this.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm there with Dutta when it comes to comes to what has been reported about NASA's scientific budget, which is that the current idea within the White House is that we're going to be seeing a 50% hit to NASA's science budget. And that is, I heard someone describe it as an extinction level event for NASA science and the missions that would be occurring with it. That means that you lose things like Hubble. That means that you lose things potentially like orbiters at Mars, which means that your lifetime for Curiosity and Perseverance is now going to be cut significantly shorter due to things like the inability to do telecommunications at Mars and other things like that. We're talking about shutting off comms to Voyager and other things. Any budgetary cut of 50% is essentially a ecosystem collapse in terms of the United States' space sciences. And it'd be very difficult to recover from that. I think it would take probably the better part of a decade of work to recover from a budget hit like that, simply because nobody else is doing it, right? At least here in the United States, nobody else is doing it. Commercially, with like a private company, it makes no sense to do the kind of stuff that NASA's doing on the space sciences side. So China, kind of has that edge. If our government in the United States really is going to move forward with a 50% cut, which I think it's an uphill battle to do that. But also, as we have learned over the past decade in the United States with our politics, never say never. It's kind of been a wild ride with things. I don't think Congress will allow that to happen. I cannot imagine congressional critters being happy about their districts losing that funding. But also at the same time, there's been a lot of get in line. And you better stay in line. That's come down over the past couple of years on those aspects of the government and funding and things like that. So we'll have to see. I really hope it doesn't happen, just because if that does happen, then that is it in terms of NASA's leadership in space flight. And I just don't think it's going to be space sciences. I think it'll be human space flight as well that will take a hit on that front as well.
What I've seen from a lot of these other cuts that have been taking place that is utterly frightening is just like when we canceled the Apollo program, we lost all of the know-how to be able to do that because we lost the talent pool. And as has happened in other industries and other agencies, when you gut the talent pool and the people that know how to do the job are no longer there, regardless of what the job is or how simple it is, you lose that talent and you lose the ability to execute that job well. So if you gut NASA or you cut back on the science budget, we've spent a very, very, very long time and a very, very, very large sum of money developing the talent pool to be able to collect the skills and abilities and knowledge and know-how to be able to do the things that we've done or that we were planning to do. And if you cut that budget and you lose those people, you will never be able to recover. I hesitate to say never recover, but it's very, very close. It's going to take you a much longer time to be able to gather that talent together and reestablish that kind of predominance and capability when you have the money. And it's going to cost you a lot more, and it's going to take you a lot more time than you think.
If I
Yeah,
could add
and
on to
I,
that, oh, if I could just add on to that real quick, I think that the same is also true if a program drags on for too long. If you have a program that is 30 years in the making, the same thing is
Depend
going to happen.
depending on what the drag of the program is. So like Voyager, for example, that's 30 years of productive science. I don't think that that's the same case as SLS, where it's 30 years of development to even get to a manufactured vehicle. I know
SLS was
that's
not 30
unfair.
years. SLS.
I know that's unfair, but it's not far from an example that makes sense.
Yeah, and I was going to say a lot of the science missions are, still paying dividends. We look at data from a very long time ago, and now that we have newer techniques to be able to look at that data, we can figure things out. There was a result that just came out a couple weeks ago from Galileo data that had been taken during a flyby of Europa in 1996. So, like, these are things that we end up having available to ourselves in the future as well. It's not a launch vehicle one and done kind of thing like we may have with the Space Launch System or something like that. These are things that work down the line, but also at the same time, if you cut the science budget, you're not going to have the people there to help do those kinds of studies or propose those kinds of studies or have the equipment there to allow these kinds of studies to occur. And China coming in and taking that over, I could see that becoming a very big reality. I'll tell you one thing. Something happened in the early 2010s, which is that NASA's budget kind of went a little flat. It got a little rocky in NASA's science funding at that time. And several missions had to be canceled because of that. So there was a Europa Jupiter system mission that was going to be a collaborative effort of two spacecraft between the United States and with NASA and with Europe, with the European Space Agency. Both of those eventually evolved into the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, ESA's JUICE mission, and NASA's own Europa Clipper mission. But it was supposed to be shared, where NASA was going to have a Jupiter Europa orbiter and the European Space Agency was going to have a Jupiter Ganymede orbiter. That had to be canceled because of budgetary considerations. So that ended up hampering a lot of things. There was also a specific mission called the Mars Astrobiology Explorer Cacher, or MAX-C. And that was essentially going to do what Perseverance is doing right now, which was to cache samples for a Mars sample return while also doing science. And it was going to have a rover component with the European Space Agency's ExoMars rover, and then NASA was going to help provide a ton of the scientific instrumentation and some of the knowledge building know-how that JPL has with building Mars rovers. That also, because of budget considerations, the same year as the Europa Ganymede missions, also had to be reined in as well. So that opens up a very large hole that a country like China can then look at and say, "Oh, look at that." I'm sure that there's some party involved here that feels like they got the bad end of the stick and would like to have a shot at this. So why don't we go and talk to them a little bit? And trust me, Europe and China are collaborative. They are working together. And it's also not just Europe as well. It's different parts of the world. Like I know one component of the Deep Space Network, China's own Deep Space Network, is in Argentina, down in South America. So, it's not just limited to say like China reaching out to Europe. China will reach out to anybody who wants to be involved in space flight and feels like they're not going to get that fair shake with NASA at the United States. So, yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine how amazing these missions would be if we were all working together on it? Oh man.
Well,
If the United States and China could work together on an ambitious space mission, I think that it would be gold.
maybe I guess you
There's
know
legitimacy in keeping them at arm's length, but at the same time, if we could figure out a way to work together, that would be stellar.
stellar space joke. I guess
I'm a
is it
dad. I'm
fair?
obliged.
Is it fair to say that, in our opinion, when NASA gets science data from these systems, they share that data with the rest of the world, or is it generally only kept in the United States for U.S. taxpayers?
Per their charter, it's public knowledge.
Well,
It's not.
is public for U.S. citizens. Is it public for the whole world?
By law, NASA has to hand that out to anyone who wants it.
So then,
It is placed into the public domain, and because it's placed into the public domain, anybody can grab it. Seriously, that's the beauty of it. That's why so many of us love NASA, is because, unlike a lot of academia where things are embargoed and you hold on to it and it maybe gets out to a few people in order to do basic peer review before it gets a full release, NASA just basically gathers data and then dumps it in data releases, and you can use it however you need to.
Well, even in the
So-
science community, they can paywall it.
So my question becomes then: does China have the same such charter?
No.
So if China becomes the world leader in exploration of the cosmos, what happens to the information that we as humanity are used to just getting?
Well,
Not
China
gonna
doesn't
get
have
it.
a charter or a mandate to share it, but they have shared quite a bit of data. Like, if you want to look up any of their lunar data from the Chang'e program, it's readily available. You can get deep into the weeds of the different spectrometry and the different instruments that they had. That, I mean, they're pretty open, at least when it comes to the lunar stuff. I can't say for much of anything else because I haven't looked into it, but at least for that, they have shared that publicly with everyone, and have even invited scientists from around the world to interpret that data and write papers based on it. So,
Ryan,
I
you've been very statuesque. What are your thoughts?
I just think if you're going all that way to collect all that data and you're not going to tell anyone, what's the point, right? Like, if you go on a 15-year voyage to Triton and drill or heat your way through the crust of ice to the oceans beneath the surface, and you find like a Neptune whale, you're like, well, you're not just going to not tell anyone, are you? You're going to tell, look what we found, look at this is awesome. Like, what's the point of going all that way just to hide all your data and hide everything from everyone else? So that doesn't add up to me.
Fair enough. Do you think they'll be able to actually do this, Ryan? Like, do you think in the next 5 years they'll be able to start delivering on some of these very, very ambitious missions?
In my opinion, if Zhurong, their Mars rover, was anything to base things off, and the lunar missions they've been doing for the last few years, and what they have like coming up in the immediate future, I don't see any reason why this is impossible. Because China is a spacefaring nation that kind of puts its money where its mouth is and does things. They have their own natively developed, continuous, sustainable human presence in space in low Earth orbit. Like. I think they are the only country in modern times that has done that by themselves, independently, with nobody else, right? They've done that themselves. The International Space Station has been continuously present, but you've got United States, you've got Russia, you've got Japan, you've got all of your European colleagues, you've got Canada. Like, it's not a single nation doing that, right? China is a single nation that has done all of these things, literally returned lunar soil last year. I don't see any reason why that progression can't continue to ramp up.
I guess my last question for the group is: China's doing a lot, right? Again, the banner at the bottom says China sets its sight on Mars, just because we were talking about like making like 9 different versions of this banner for everything that they're going to do, and I just never got around to it. But what was it again? It's Mars, the Moon.
Mars sample return launching in 2028, a mission to Jupiter and Callisto in 2029, a Venus atmospheric sample probe in 2033. They want to start sending equipment to do uh, ISRU, in situ resource utilization on Mars, just probably start processing methane, and then sending a probe to Neptune and Triton. So those are the
I
big
want them.
five that they've
Someone
recently
needs to build a
announced.
Venus boat. Venus boat. So 5 major missions. They're landing on Jupiter. Gas giant. That was a funny space joke. You know, lots of really interesting missions there. I guess my question to the group then is, which of these missions do you find most interesting? I'll start with you, Space Mike.
Honestly, I find the one going to Neptune and Triton most interesting because no one has done that yet. We haven't done that yet. All we've had is the flybys from the Voyager probes, and to actually send an orbiter that would actually go into orbit of Neptune, and I would assume eventually go into orbit of Triton, unless they do some sort of weird maneuver where they drop off the little lander for it. On some sort of flyby of Triton. But I find that really interesting, and I'm really happy to see a probe that is going out to one of the outer gas giants, because we haven't done that yet. And there's some pretty interesting stuff going on right there. Apparently, climate change is happening in the entire solar system. So I'd like to get to the bottom of some of the stuff that's going on at Neptune right now.
That's pseudoscience at best.
What? How dare you, sir?
And we've been demonetized. Jared, how about you? What excites you the most?
I would say for me, what excites me the most, definitely their Venus atmospheric sample mission. Simply because there were proposals in the early 90s for a Mars sample mission that basically said, what we'll do, we'll put a capsule and we'll put it on a like ballistic free return trajectory from Mars back to Earth, but we'll have it like go down into the atmosphere and have it skim maybe like 15 to 10 kilometers above the surface of Mars. It'll open up these sample collectors as it's like literally zipping through the atmosphere. And then as it collects those samples, we'll store it. And then not only, like, we'll grab dust and Martian atmosphere and bring it back. And it will just, as it just does, because of its velocity, it'll climb out of the atmosphere and be on its way back to Earth. Like the simplest kind of Mars sample return you can possibly think of. And it sounds like that's exactly what they want to do at Venus, that they want to have some sort of vehicle just basically zip through the atmosphere and open up collectors and grab sample and then bring it back. And I'm really excited about that because one of the big questions about Venus is if Venus is still volcanically active or not. Just because you have volcanoes at the surface doesn't mean you're volcanically active. There's plenty of volcanoes in Hawaii that aren't active. So if we can get some atmospheric samples from Venus, we can actually look at the chemical composition that's there and be able to determine, is there volcanic activity? And then if there is, what level of volcanic activity is there, and what kind of volcanism is on Venus as well? Is it similar to Earth volcanism or not? That's like really exciting to me, is to compare potential volcanism on Venus to Earth to see if things like plate tectonics and geology and stuff is similar amongst the similar types of terrestrial planets. And Venus is essentially Earth's evil twin, right? It's just about the same size. It's just like, a lot hotter. That's an understatement. In a lot hotter. So that mission excites me the most. I also want to point this out too, which I think, Mike, you pointed this out to me. So props to Mike for finding this one, which is that this Venus mission was actually competed. There was an actual competition for it, just like you have with NASA's programs and their spacecraft, their space missions that they have, where they have like Discovery class missions, and they get like 5 proposals, and then they pick from them as to which one has the best, and then that mission gets to go with it. China kind of just picking up on what NASA does. So we'll see.
Ryan, how about you?
Am I allowed to have 2 answers? Because I have 2 favorites for 2 different reasons. Is that,
Okay,
what
no
are the
los
rules?
dos.
Sure.
Okay.
I mean,
So-
rules don't apply here, so you're good to go.
My first favorite, this is in no particular order, by the way, but my first favorite is the Mars sample return, right? Just because they're collecting their samples after NASA and returning them before. So I think that's a nice little, encouragement to the politicians in Congress in the US. My second favorite is the Neptune mission, just because, like Mike was saying, nobody's orbited, nobody's collected anything, nobody's inspected anything. We've buzzed past Neptune a couple times, that's it. So to actually have a probe that can study this planet and can study its moon Triton, that really, really excites me, just because we don't know what's there. So it's like, we don't know what questions to ask yet, because we haven't seen what we can ask questions about, if that makes sense. So that specific in particular really, really intrigues me.
Dada, how about you?
Venus. I always thought it would be awesome to have like a Venusian submarine that floats around the atmosphere and then like dives to the surface to do experiments and then comes back up and floats around. That would be cool.
Yeah, I want to see Venetian boat. I think that'd be really, really, really epic. I mean, that's not what they're
Venus
proposing, but I still want.
But
I still
okay,
want to see one. Yeah.
a point of distinction: Venetian boat is what you find in Italy. Venusian boat is what you find.
Venusian. You're right. A Venusian boat. Actually, NASA LSP are certifying some new rockets.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the NASA one, they just certified Starship for bigger payloads in the future, hopefully scientific payloads. As of right now, I only know of one or two potential commercial payloads for Starship. That isn't something that SpaceX is planning. I don't know of anything for sure that NASA is planning, but still good news. And at the very least, that tells me that there's some sort of exchange of information so that they can start properly planning for launching stuff on Starship. That's great. And then when
Wait,
it comes to
how have they certified it if it hasn't flown successfully yet?
it's lifted off the pad. That's good enough.
So to my understanding, the contract they've been
I just
added
realized.
to.
Hold up.
To my understanding, the contract they've been added to was their existing Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy contract. Starship has been co-opted onto that, and it's not like a certification like, we trust Starship now to launch all our payloads, right? It's like they've been added to a contract which allows them to bid for other contracts. So, for example, New Glenn was added to this same thing in 2020. It didn't fly until 2025. So it's kind of, it's weird, but it's like Starship can now bid for NASA missions, but they call it a contract. Like, make of that what you will, but that's kind of what's happened.
Wonder how that happened.
They also certified Astra, so Well, that's for the NASA side, but
certified for suborbit.
We do science with that too. That's on the NASA side, but what I'm more excited about is the national security side. Apparently, Space Force has certified the Vulcan launch vehicle, despite only launching twice and having a observation on their last mission. They have gotten their certification that they can start flying national security payloads, which, good for them. And I hope that means we start seeing a lot more Vulcan launches, because aside from Kuiper and a handful of other things, I don't really know of much other payloads for Vulcan right now. So that's really good. And another thing that has come up is that Rocket Lab's Neutron rocket, which is still under construction, hasn't flown yet, and Stoke Space's Nova rocket, also under construction, hasn't flown yet, they're now eligible to compete for national security payloads. That doesn't mean that they've gotten a big contract. It just means they're eligible to compete. And it's a very short list of people who can compete on those missions.
That's a big deal, though, right? Like, being able to compete for those those are lucrative contracts, and being able to compete, like it didn't used to be. I don't want to say that easy, but like it's nice that they've changed their stance to open it up for more providers. Also, it's nice that there are more providers, right?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what a really cool place we're in. And really quickly, just out of curiosity, are you guys more excited about Neutron rocket or Stoke Space's rocket? I don't remember its name.
Nova.
Nova. Yeah. Are you more excited for Neutron or Nova?
Both.
No. This time you don't get to choose both, Ryan. You have to pick one. You torment us with polls. I'm going to torment you with this question. Which one? You have to pick one. Which one are you more excited about?
For the time being, Neutron, because it's going to launch first.
All right, now I got to figure out how to shut off the music. All right, there we go.
Yeah.
This is why having a stream deck with that button is super handy, because you can just reach over and be like, all right, Neutron. Dutta and Jared, how about you guys?
Stoke Space, actually. Yeah, I think the design of their rocket is unique, and I'm interested to see how that pans out.
Yeah, likewise, Nova, because I'm interested in seeing. It's a fully reusable launch vehicle. How can you not be excited about that? Also, it's a physics-generated aerospike. How can I not be excited about that as well?
Yeah.
So, can I make a bold statement here? A bold, facetious statement, if I may,
Hot take.
about it, which is that
That's
I
on,
think
that's on brand.
I think I think Nova is going to be the first fully reusable rocket to fly. So I think it'll be the first fully reusable rocket to make it work. So and boy, am I have a
Just
lot of
totally
hats.
discounting DCX, huh?
I have a lot of hats.
Oh, hold up.
around
DCX
here.
didn't. Wait. You're saying, hang
Look.
on.
Orbital
Wait.
rocket.
Jared,
Look.
you're saying orbital
Orbital.
rocket. Yeah.
Look,
Because otherwise,
first of
it's
all-
already happened.
First of all, Dutta, I have some words for you that I'll say in the after show, because I'm not going to use that strong of language in front of the children
There
here.
are children present.
There are children present. Earmuffs, everybody. But yeah, no, DCX is the ultimate, and yeah, I love DCX.
I was gonna say, how dare you talk ill of your firstborn son?
Dutta, don't you make me do this.
Don't you
Don't
talk
make
to
me
me
do
or
this.
my son ever again.
So
So it's the Space Force is allowing. It's Space Force, right? It's Department of Defense is allowing for these other rockets to start to compete for missions. When do we expect to see any movement on any? Like, obviously, what can actually no. I was going to say obviously, but maybe that's not obvious. Can all of these companies currently compete for contracts that might be open, assuming that they feel that they can make the timeline? So, can Rocket Lab, as of right now, compete Neutron against Nova or any other vehicle that is certified for missions that they feel that they will be able to make timeline-wise?
I mean, I certainly think that they can compete with Nova, and at least in terms of who gets there first and the amount of stuff. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but at the projected levels that they have, I believe that Neutron is set to launch a lot more amount of payload than Nova would.
Yeah.
So, and a lot of the ones that is coming up is there's a lot of these within Space Force, Space Development Agency, SDA, and they have these tranche layers of both looking for spy satellites, looking for missile identification. They're also looking at other stuff, which is more in our next segment. But there's quite a few different satellites that they have planned that some of them are planned to launch together in a type of constellation. Some of them are by themselves, and there's quite a few of them. And right now they have at least 3 different tranches, constellations, so to speak. And only the first one has actually been contracted out. So the second and the third are still available for contracts for everyone who's eligible to compete in that. That includes SpaceX. That includes now United Launch Alliance with their Vulcan. And eventually that will include Blue Origin's New Glenn rocket as well. So I think that there is, and especially because I hate to say this, you might want to remove yourself for a second, Jamie, but I still believe that SpaceX is really busy and booked up for quite some time. So even if they have the capability to reliably launch a lot of these satellites, I think that the Space Force is working on a timetable that most of us aren't aware of right now, and want to get as much of these into orbit as they possibly can. And if SpaceX can't accommodate them for how quickly they want to do this, same goes for United Launch Alliance. It's in their best interest to have as many providers as they possibly can. That's just my
They've got
opinion, though.
they've got 4 years. Um, Aravel has a good point. Rocket Lab has a lot of experience in driving down costs, making rockets quickly, and even rocket and engine refurbishment. Stoke Space will need time to learn all of those things. Or the talent pool. Maybe they can glom some talent from other companies that have done that and make that happen quicker.
Got to be added to the scene. It's all the same, like 500 people. They just move from company to company, right? Like everyone that was just Rifted Blue, they're moving somewhere else. They're going to go to Rocket Lab. They're going to go to Stoke Space. Like, I think everyone's going to have a home here. And I mean, it sucks. Don't get me wrong, it sucks. But like, it's a very small, aerospace is a small community, right? Like, we all know each other, right? Like, all of you watch NASA spaceflight, almost guaranteed, right? You all do Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut. We all watch the Launchpad Network. Some of you watch TMRO. I'm kidding. Obviously, you guys watch TMRO. But like, I think my point is, I don't think there's going to, well, yeah, maybe that's more of a post-show thing. But like, I think any brain drain that occurs on one company gets sucked up by another one, at least in commercial space.
Or a whole new company started as a result.
Yeah, or a whole new company. Exactly. And as one company disappears, other companies start to use that technology stack for something new and innovative and really neat. I guess my question, Space Mike, and I think Dave Avery mentioned this is they're building this out for 2030, right? So they can compete for contracts 2030 and beyond. It sounds like is that a correct? Okay, so. Does that mean, because if they're bidding these contracts right now, are they bidding 2030 contracts right now? Is that the point, or we still have a couple of years before we start to bid out those contracts?
I think there's a couple of years, and I actually recently just saw something that for the third tranche of these Space Force satellites that they're looking for, they're actually thinking about redoing the contracts for the satellites themselves. And apparently they're not happy with some of the people that they've contracted with, which I don't even know who all that they have contracted with. Some of that is classified, but apparently they're not happy with the speed and the cost of some of these satellites that they are hoping to develop and put into this layer. And so there is a little bit of a discussion about whether or not to move to other providers just for the satellites of it. So I think that things are pretty firm for the most part. Things are at least being built for the second layer of these Space Force satellites. But as far as the third one goes, they're looking into different providers for that. So I think that there is going to be at least soon, within the next couple of years, because they've only just started launching Tranche 1, and there's still quite a few satellites to go before that one is finished. So I think 2-3 years from now would certainly be, a good time to, well, already start competing for those launches and putting in all the paperwork and certifications that you can. In the case of Rocket Lab and Stoke, they first have to launch these new rockets a couple of times and prove that, yes, this is reliable, we can deal with issues, we can put it into the orbits that you're looking for, blah, blah, blah. But I think that there's still plenty of time to compete for the other satellites that haven't been contracted out yet, because I could be wrong on this, but I believe that the first tranche, all of it has already been contracted out for who's going to launch them.
Sounds like 2030 is going to be a really interesting year, right? Like, just looking at the first story with China, like that's when a lot of their stuff is going to start kicking in. You're going to start to see Nova, Neutron, New Glenn, Starship. I'm missing a bunch, all coming on. I mean, not just coming online, but like actively online, sending payloads up. So there's just, the next 5 years in exploration or just rocketry, aerospace is going to be kind of epic. right? Like, it's going to be exciting. This is a great time to be a space nerd. This is a really
Mhm.
great time to be a space nerd.
Like you thought the
And
last decade was wild. Wait do you see what's going to happen over the next half a decade?
yeah, absolutely. I don't even think
I,
like next 2 years.
I think there is potential for that, but I also think we should be cautious because just because you have a contract or you think you have a contract doesn't ensure that you're going to get it or get paid for it.
That's fair, but these vehicles are still coming online with or without this contract. The contracts would just help.
Yeah.
Oh, grumpy pants, come on
No,
now.
no. Yes, in the case of go getters like Sierra Space who continue despite getting the contract canceled, but some companies can't continue like that.
Blue Origin's not going to give up, right? They've got New Glenn.
Sure.
They've already flown it. Rocket Lab already has contracts, already has funding. I don't foresee Neutron going anywhere unless you guys disagree. Stoke Space feels a little bit like Sierra Nevada, where they've got that gumption of just like, we're going to get this going.
But they need to find funding if funding falls through. You can't build stuff without money, and if you don't have money, you can't build stuff. So
Yeah, although
if you're able to find funding, alternate sources of funding, then yeah, that's great, and that
Sure.
I hope that continues. I'm just
Sure.
saying.
It seems
temper your
like billionaires
expectations.
are buying out these rockets, right?
Billionaires are a dime a dozen. There you go.
I'm just look. Eric Schmidt just like bought out relativity. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like,
Yeah.
like everyone seems rocket companies. They're so hot right now. Like they're all the rage. Everyone's got to have their own. So
They are.
One of these days, Mark Zuckerberg could buy these companies and have the meta rocket.
The meta rocket. I mean, maybe, right? Like, who knows? Who knows? All right. Any last comments on this one? Jared, you're all excited for the meta rocket. Jared, are you going to fly on the meta rocket?
No, I just I don't want to fly on a rocket from a CEO who looks like he was a reject extra from Malibu's Most Wanted. I'm good. I'm fine. So I don't know what's up with him lately, but he literally looks like it's just like anyways, I'll save that for the members show.
Drew said, just wait till companies like
till-
Disney start building rocket company or buying rocket companies.
gosh.
Oh, Disney can't afford a
gosh.
rocket company. Disney can't even afford their own stuff.
Yep.
Yeah,
Poor Disney.
they're hurting pretty bad. So our final, it was all fun and laughs, and then let's go our upcoming space war.
Yay!
I know how. How do you transition to that? Yeah, Space Mike, this was yours again, so I'm going to hand the baton to you again.
Well, sort of. There have been some interesting developments that has scared the crap out of American generals at Space Force and Air Force and others, and that is all of these crazy maneuvers that Chinese satellites have been doing late. Ryan in the poll kind of talked a little bit about one deploying a little companion satellite. They've been having a lot of that where months and months after launch and a satellite has gotten into its particular orbit, suddenly new objects start appearing around it. And it's just like, oh, those sneaky guys had a couple of extra payloads on board, a couple of extra satellites. And then they're not just some little CubeSat that they're deploying. Those extra payloads are maneuvering and changing their orbits. In fact, quite a few of these satellites, not just these companion ones, but some of the main bigger satellites are doing some pretty exotic changes in orbit. Some of them even changing their inclination as much as 10 degrees, which is very hard to do in orbit. It takes a lot of delta V to be able to do that. And they're doing it in such a way that whenever they perform these maneuvers, it's outside of our visibility, whether it be from ground stations or from our assets that we have in orbit. So we'll lose sight of something for, let's say, 15 to 20 minutes or something like that. And then by the time it comes around where we're expecting it, it's no longer there. And, a little bit of scrambling later and find it in a different orbit entirely. There have been
Is this
quite
why
a few.
we need Greenland?
This is partially maybe why we need Greenland. There is there have been quite a few satellites that have been maneuvering around and rendezvousing with other satellites in orbit. Some of them already belong to the Chinese, some of them belong to us, some of them belong to the Russians. And if they wanted to, they could take out any of these satellites. They could take out, some geostationary satellites. They could take out TDRS satellites. Like the way that they are able to maneuver around and keep station and then move again to a completely different orbit has freaked out a lot of the national security people, and they are really, really, really pushing hard to have satellite interceptors of our own, which we have that right now of missiles that we can launch, but they want to have stuff that is in orbit already placed for if something pops off and a space war does begin, that they already have a whole bunch of assets that can intercept and blow things up and do all sorts of crazy things. There was recently a contract awarded to Gravitics, who is building space station modules to essentially have a satellite carrier, a spacecraft carrier, aircraft carrier in space that would hold on to several satellites until the order is given, and then launch a satellite that has similar capabilities to what we're seeing from China. And in addition to that, Booz Allen has gotten a big contract to develop satellites for the Golden Dome, which is a proposal to have a whole system to not just monitor for missiles and satellites that are doing interceptor type stuff, but then also have our own capabilities to intercept and either shoot down missiles or take out satellites that we think are dangerous and up to no good. So a
Mike,
little
this
bit of
sounds
scary
terrible.
stuff going on.
This sounds terrible because it sounds like what they're going to do is they're going to use these, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they're going to use these as impactors to take out other satellites, right? Which is going to create a fantastical amount of debris in space. And that debris can then act as additional impactors, which will impact additional satellites. What's that called? A Kessler effect? Something like that?
Kessler syndrome.
Yeah, like
It'll make
that's
space a
not
wasteland.
good. Yeah, once we do that, it kiss the humanity's ability to explore the stars goodbye. We'll be locked on this planet, right? Like, how would we be able to fly through that?
All of the satellite intercept and blowing up satellite tests so far have thankfully been in low Earth orbit. And there's still a couple of debris fields for certain ones, but a lot of them were able to degrade and re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, all the different pieces, within a couple of months or a couple of years. But if we start doing stuff like that in medium Earth orbit or geosynchronous Earth orbit, exactly what you said, Jamie, we are stuck.
Yeah, this is
And you're never going to be able to clean all that up because you can't even track some of the debris, and all of it is lethal.
Yep.
yeah, it's like a space arms race. Sounds terrible.
This is scorched space.
Yeah, I mean, is it really that different than nuclear war? Like nuclear warheads? Just what is
Yeah,
it?
because
Assured destruction or
mutually assured destruction.
Yeah.
Because not every country is going to be involved in that. So there will be survivors after a number of years that will be able to take predominance in society as they recreate it. But unless you go up and you take a big giant hefty bag and scrape up all the debris, you're never going to have viable orbits within the reaches of space anymore.
Man, I'm a little more scared about the space stuff as opposed to nuclear. So with nuclear warheads, it feels like everyone immediately understands the ramifications of launching one, right? There's no like, oh, hey, I wonder if that'll be bad. Everyone at some level just gets it.
We've already got preparations in place in a number of aspects. We've got the seed bank in Antarctica that's underground. We've got bunkers that would make it possible for a small population to survive. Not every country would be involved, and not every country would be as affected as the primary parties. But there would be zero discrimination with this kind of destruction in space.
Yeah, so even outside of that, we understand on a human level why we don't want to launch a nuclear weapon, right? But I don't think we understand at that same human level why taking out another satellite would be horrifically bad and potentially the end of the species. And I know that is going over the top, but like if we lock ourselves on, if we lock ourselves onto this planet and an asteroid starts coming our way,
Yeah,
right?
I don't
Like,
I don't think that's hyperbole. I really don't. And beyond that, like once you have uncontrolled space debris, like you can have big pieces that re-enter the atmosphere and remain largely intact as they hit population centers with unknown and unmeasurable force.
I mean, it could
Hear me
clear.
out.
Oh man, yeah, go for it. Like, make it happy here. This is
If
getting
we
depressing.
if humanity, destroys our ability to access space because of all the debris orbiting Earth, and then the asteroid comes, on the bright side, won't the asteroid also get rid of the space debris?
I don't know that it would. I think it'll impact some of it, and it's just going to knock other of it into another orbital plane. Yeah, it's going to make it worse.
It's like
We're
one of
not-
those shitty YouTube video game ads where you try to align the asteroid to take out as much space debris and as much space debris as to take out the asteroid.
And I just want to say, for YouTube, you have nothing but great ads, and we enjoy having our ads on YouTube. Please don't take our ads away, YouTube. Jared, you were shaking your head. No, what you agreeing with or disagreeing with something?
This is just a really bad Kessler syndrome is just a really bad thing overall, and yeah, don't do it. Just don't. It is the end game for most of what human. If you think about like what human civilization runs on nowadays, there's so much based in space that, like, if you take it out, there's gonna be a lot of stuff that we're not gonna be able to do for a very long time, and.
I mean, shoot, we got a whole generation of people who can't maneuver without GPS.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I've got a Thomas guide, if you know what a Thomas guide is, in my Jeep. I bought that a while ago because I was like, 5 years ago, I was like, if this election doesn't work, GPS may get turned off, and I still want to go get pizza. So, I gotta make sure that I know how to do it. So if you don't know what a Thomas guide is, it's basically like the official paper map of all of Los Angeles. Yeah, so most people don't know how to navigate with maps. I will say one neat
hard
thing.
copy of Google Maps.
Yeah, basically.
Isn't that MapQuest?
Cool thing about paper maps.
No, that's the paperback version.
So with paper maps, they can be waterproof, and they never run out of battery. How neat is that? That's pretty neat. So I love that.
They're instantly out of date though as soon as they're printed.
Well,
I'm a Gen Xer. I'm a Gen Xer, and I'm 100% reliant on GPS maps. 100%.
Jared, I bet your Thomas guide still says Gulf of America, you heathen.
My Thomas guide is from 2020. Thank you very much. So
the before times. All
my
right,
Thomas
I feel like
guide
that's.
does not recognize your
I
authority.
feel like that's our show. Unless anyone has any final comments here.
We find ourselves in this weird balance between having some incredible space future and having some incredible missions, whether it's China or not. I count that towards humanity and towards all of Earth. And then on the other hand, having these warmongering fools who are trying to set up these capabilities to have a space war. Whether one happens or not is another story, but we find ourselves in this really odd position of having the most amazing future that none of us could ever have dreamed of, or being stuck and ensuring eventually, even if it's long term, ensuring the extinction of all mankind. So it's a weird place to be in, and just goes to show how important all of this really is.
It really is. It truly is. Like, humanity has to make a choice here, don't we? We have to choose. Are we going to go to the stars, or are we going to destroy ourselves? And it's completely our choice. Right? Like, I'm not sure canceling NASA's science budget is moving us in the right direction, but let's go to the member show for that.
On that upbeat note, thank you for watching.
Yeah, I know, right? What a great way to end the show. Also, on that first slate, you did see some names in yellow, and those names this week were Nathan Moling, Michael Watford, Thomas Weir, Mark Pert, Stephen Lewis, Mystic Wolf, Drew Yarch, General Success, Patrick Haynes, and John Valentine. So thank you for renewing your membership. And some of those membership renewals may come from the gifted memberships. And you saw 2 of those during this show. One of those was earlier Sakura's Light, who gifted 5 Space News memberships, as well as Dave Avery, who also did the same. So thank you both for gifting memberships. It is really appreciated. It gives everyone who got that membership now has access to the member show. And as I was kind of mentioning in the pre-show, because we've kind of gone back to and speaking of the member show, that'll be coming up next. If you are a member at any level, including the system support level, you will have access to the member show live or on demand, at which point I think I promised a rant, but I don't remember what the rant was about. So someone's going to have to remind me. And it should be a lot of fun, though. It should be a lot of fun. And, I think the current plan, unless you guys disagree, I think the current plan is we're going to switch this live show over to members only once we post the on-demand version. But let me know if you hate that. The goal isn't to piss you guys off. The goal is to feed the algorithm correctly and create something that makes sense and not harm the show. We don't know. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't work. But just trying to get out there a little bit more. On that note, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys next week.